What?
Hello, we're sitting here with Dr. Clyde Moneyhun from Boise State University, who just published Truck Driver Haikus by Dolors Miquel. Dr. Moneyhun, can you tell us a little bit about who is Dolors Miquel?
Dolores is a contemporary poet in Spain. She works in Catalan because she's from Catalonia, in fact. Not Barcelona. She's from a pretty big city that's inland from Barcelona called Lleida. She's very well known. She's published many volumes of poetry, television plays, stage plays, TV scripts, you name it. Won many prizes. And she is a little notorious. Her poetry sometimes can be, at least in a Spanish context, can be controversial. To work in Catalan to begin with, so to write in Catalan rather than Spanish, even living in Catalonia, that's a political act, basically. She's very critical of the government. She's very critical of the Catholic Church. Kind of can be a difficult thing to be in Spain. Her poetry can be a little outrageous. It can be a little obscene from time to time. And she's very photogenic. She's on TV. She's very exuberant. And she's basically a wonderful person.
Wow. Can you tell us how you discovered her or how you became interested in her work?
It's kind of translators. You're always looking for the next 5 projects, in a way. Even when you don't know you're doing it, your antenna are always out somewhere looking for projects. And I was I was working on many other things. In fact, I was working on a book that became this one, Salt by Pons Pons. When I was taking a break from this book, I would, like everybody, I would go on the internet. What else do you do when you need to take a break? And I was always sort of cruising around looking for other Catalan poets. Stumbled upon these haikus in Catalan by Dolors Miquel, and they were called Truck Driver Haikus, which was such a wacky idea. I was intrigued right away. I grabbed some off the internet. Somebody had posted a few. I translated them, and they just were delightful. I thought they were some were extremely funny, some were profound. They're all very beautiful. And eventually I got my hands on I had to order the book itself to satisfy my curiosity. And then I thought, hey, haikus, how hard could it be? They're little, they're short. Turned out to take about 3 years. That's how it started. I just stumbled on it, which is the way a lot of my projects have started.
Wow. So how would you characterize her as a poet and describe her poetry?
I wouldn't call her experimental exactly, but I would say that every book is an adventure. With a lot of poets, poets change over time, their voices change over time, but they tend to be fairly identifiable. And there's a Robert Lowell poem, kind of thing. Dolores does something different with every book. So this book is haikus. A book that I finished and hope to publish pretty soon by her is called Missa Pagesa, Peasant Mass. And she uses the genres of Catholic discourse, I guess you call it, canonical sermons and so on. And so that's what that book is all about. She has another book that's based on Greek mythology, so she recombines and makes crazy new myths. So every book is really different. You never know what she's going to get herself up to. Always fresh. At the same time, she has a vocabulary she uses pretty much all the time, and she is concerned with politics. She's concerned with the death of our spirit in modern capitalism. She told me one time, I was asking her, how can you do this in this Catholic country and blah, blah, blah. And she said, the government doesn't own my body and the church doesn't own my soul. So I think that runs through all of her poetry.
Wow. So how did the book project itself come about?
This is very funny. I had translated a couple of, a handful of poems, a dozen or so, because they're little. And I couldn't find an address for her anywhere on the internet or, even a surface mail address. So I wrote to her publisher and said, can you give me an address? I would like to be in touch with this author. They sent me a surface mail address, and I made a little bundle, and I mailed it. And I waited and waited, 6 weeks, and nothing happened. So I write the publisher, you have an email address? Here's you. So I email her and I attach the poems. Still weeks go by and nothing. Finally, she wrote me, and this is what she had done. She gets this package of stuff from a person she's never met. She ignores it because what? Then she gets email from the same guy, and she decided I was some kind of like weirdo translator stalker guy. She called a friend and said, have you ever heard of this guy? Turned out to be my friend Bonds. He went, yeah, he's all right. He's a little strange, but yeah, you can answer him. He won't bother. And so she answered. We struck up a conversation over email, and I said, how'd you like me to do the whole book? She said, sure, go for it.
All right.
I should mention, by the way, what makes this thing possible is the publisher called Francis Boodle Publishers, editor-in-chief Clive Boodle. He's done both of these books that I translated. He does a lot of translated books, and he loves doing books in what he calls lesser-known languages. He has a book of a collection of Occitan poetry. It's about that thick. He's got a book of Welsh poetry. He's got a book of Cornish poetry, et cetera, Maltese poetry. This guy is a hero for publishing these smaller languages.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So why Catalan? Why that language?
I hope that, I think probably most translators have an attachment to their language or languages that they translate. I do Catalan. I joked to people that I do Catalan because, like French is taken, Spanish, geez, there's too many people doing Italian, and very few people translating Catalan. It's a small shop. So that's a true thing. At the same time, Catalan was spoken by my ancestors. My mother's family is from a very tiny island called Menorca. It's out in the Mediterranean, part of the group called the Balearics. And as with Catalonia, the native language, everybody speaks Spanish there, but the native language there is Catalan. So when my ancestors came to America, they didn't bring Spanish with them. They brought Catalan with them, and it was spoken up until about my grandmother's time. And so I had to learn it as a school subject, but it's dear to my heart.
Oh, that's great. A real emotional connection.
It is.
And familial. So what's next for you as a translator?
Oh boy, too many. I've gotten to that stage. I've published these 2 books, a lot of journal stuff, and now I've gotten to a stage where I'm just a boy who can't say no. I've got about 5 pretty serious things going. I'm harassing my buddy Clive Boodle, of the publishing company, to publish a book called Bruixa de Dol, which means Witch in Mourning. It's a major, just a blockbuster of 20th century poetry by Maria Mercè Marçal. It's an amazing book. I'd like to put together a book that I've got a book proposal for that's an anthology of 5 women poets from the 20th century, 5 Catalan poets who, Catalan was a suppressed language under the dictator Franco, and women's poetry was doubly out of print, and now it's back. And these are just wonderful, amazing poets from right across the century. There's that one. There's always something more to do with translating.
Yeah, keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. We've been here with Dr. Clyde Moneyhun, and check it out, Truck Driver Haikus.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.